You are not valued very well. All CEOs tell me that they're undervalued. All of them.
That's sort of our job. Yeah.
It is your job. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. But does that mean that you're missing a trick somewhere because the market's just not buying into what you've got? It can't just be down on Californian permitting. What is the market not getting? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. That helps us to understand which companies you think we should be spending our time, money and effort on for you. And of course, leave your comments below to help us understand the sorts of questions you think we should be asking, how you think we're doing, and of course, what you think of the company. You can also catch this as a podcast, an article, or a transcript on cruxinvestor.com. And of course, for our Crux Investor Club members, you get early access to this video. And if you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Scott Trebilcock, CEO of Core Mining, a TSX-V listed company with assets in California and up in BC. We spoke to them on the 16th of April, where they went through their business plan and how they hope to move things forward. But obviously, the market has changed dramatically since then. So despite COVID, their share price has trebled. They've got Eric Sprott on board as an investor. He likes their portfolio gold approach to this. So what we've learned was that the three of the projects were pretty much being geared up to create some sort of monetization event to fund their flagship project, Imperial, which is in California. One small snag, permitting. California's well known and renowned for that. But I'm assured by Scott that it's just a process that they have to go through. We discussed why the market's not giving them full value or credit, certainly not in relation to their peers, and what he's going to do about it. Marketing is the solution, which is good news. We also talk about what they're going to do with the capital that's been made available through Eric's investment, and he kind of gives a rundown about where they're going to spend their money, what decisions they're going to need to make as a result of that, and the timing of that. So take a look in the description below at some of the other topics we discuss. Anything interests you, click on the number that's beside that topic. That's called a timestamp. That jumps you through to that part of the video. Otherwise, enjoy everything that Scott has to say. Hey Scott, how are you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
You're not bad. It's been a while. I say while. We spoke in April, and I just need to point this out to people before we get going. In April, your shares were 37 cents. You were just under 30 million market cap. You've had a busy COVID period.
Yeah, we've had a really good 3 months.
Yeah, you really have. You really have. So look, we're gonna talk about that and get into the strategy. But first of all, just kick off with that 1 minute overview of the business, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Core is a relatively new gold equity. It's been public now for about 19 months. We've got a portfolio of gold projects, 4 to be precise, in California and British Columbia, 2 in BC, 2 in California. Got about 4.9 million ounces of resources across that portfolio. So we do have real value in the ground. We've got a PEA on our flagship project called Imperial that we're moving into permitting, and we're exploring with some strategic investment from Eric Sprott across the portfolio. So I think it's a really exciting time to try and build a gold business.
Well, it definitely is. It definitely is. I think a lot of gold projects are getting the benefit of the gold bull environment for sure. And what I'm keen to always discover is it just a case of anything with gold gets given money, or you're actually building something which is going to create real value? So let's just remind people, because we went through quite a detailed conversation around your business plan and strategy. And where we ended up, just to save some time here, is that Imperial is your flagship project. The other projects are being developed and value is being built and set against those with the ultimate goal of monetizing them so that you can advance the Imperial project. That's what you told me last time out. Is that fair enough? Yep. Good.
Fair enough.
Things have changed. Things have changed. I saw some drill results this morning from FG up in British Columbia, which last time when we spoke last time, you said, well, maybe we'll advance it a bit and then we'll kind of get a JV partner in, or maybe we'll sell it. But the numbers that came out today were pretty exciting. Have your plans changed?
Yes, yeah, certainly. One of the reasons I joined Core was the portfolio nature. And, I think there are a lot of strategic choices to make when you have a portfolio. And, I think in the long term, it is tough to get value in the mining business for multiple assets inside a single company if they're all similar, like pursuing 4 exploration projects all at once in one company. investors would probably ask the question, what am I investing in here? And Core does have that opportunity. So you're right, we are making choices and continuing evaluating our strategy as we go along the path. And with the share price appreciating from the 37 cents to, let's say, mid-dollar range now, it's opened up obviously access to additional lower cost capital when it comes to issuing equity, from the treasury. And we've brought in a strategic investment, Eric Sprott, that puts us, I don't know, we're sitting on, 10 or 11 million Canadian dollars that we feel we can deploy some of that capital. And that's what we actually told Eric before he put his money in, is that we want to deploy some of your capital to add value to these ounces in the ground, these other projects, in parallel to making sure we move our flagship Imperial very clearly and professionally down that value creation path of permitting. But I think going back to what we talked about in April, I don't think it's changed the strategy of the company. At some point, we're going to have to make that choice. Do we either park those exploration assets in the background and go out and raise money from institutions on the back of a development story? Do we break up the company and put the BC assets somewhere else? Do we add them to another company? Do we sell them outright? I think those are all choices that we still have ahead of us. And ultimately, it'll come down to creating value per share and making sure that we're tight with issuing capital as we build out the company.
Well said. So value per share is where it's at. Now, there are many companies that we talk to who have this portfolio approach. They don't have enough money to do much with anything, and it becomes a very difficult story to follow or believe. You've got 4 assets. The three assets that you've now got money. Money you didn't have 3 months ago. You've now got money to attribute to those in any way you feel. So what is the plan? How much money goes on Imperial, and how much is attributed to FG, for instance, obviously where you've had this sort of rather nice grade drill result come out today?
Yeah, without preempting my board meeting that's tomorrow about use of capital, I think the way we're thinking about it right now is Imperial is number one use of cash. When we raise capital, we ensure that Mark Leduc, our Chief Operating Officer and leader of the project, has the budget to hire his team, engage with stakeholders, put in our permitting documents, and let's call it's the do it right budget. Right? We want to do it right on the ground so that we maximize if a third party comes in, a big company, and they look at the asset and they want to buy it down the track, they can look at all the work we've done and say, we can just pick up this project right here and drop it across the finish line because these guys have done such a great job. That's how we want our Imperial project to proceed. So that is funded. Then you look at the rest of the cash that we have and we say, okay, we now want to allocate capital in, we're all pretty cheap here in management, which is I think is what you want. And we want to use our capital in the best way in each one of those assets to build, 2 things. So they're already 100% owned, but we want district scale. So we want to have projects that have that scale potential to host infrastructure, to have resources that are worthy of development. We want to move each project step by step along and through that path. And then with a side objective of making new discoveries and growing ounces in the ground, where we can afford some, call it some wildcatting off the edges of these projects. So that means we're putting money into regional exploration at Imperial to grow the project. We're investing in increasing the size and quality of the Long Valley project. And up in BC, we're trying to redefine a project that's been kicked around through a few cycles and try and make a real project out of it. So slightly more speculative, but we think for the $1.5 million we've allocated to that project, that we can make a real step forward and have people say, wow, these guys have another asset that has real value.
Okay, but the order of play hasn't changed here, because some of the issues we talked about in California last time were around permitting, right? And now with things changing up in BC, do you start to look at the projects differently, or do you think these are, obviously you're only at PEA stage, but these are not insurmountable and it won't be long timelines that we're talking about in terms of resolving that?
Like a good strategy, I think, is a consistent path to follow, and you've got to make some adjustments along the edge. And with the access to capital, we've obviously made some adjustments along the edge that we are going to go do some of the work that if we were smaller and didn't have access to capital, we would have looked at joint venture partners and earn-ins to come in and do some of that work to show the value. So that's the steps we're taking right now at FG, and I think we're having some great success. And one of the things, we don't have to raise tens of millions of dollars. Core has, just by the assets that we acquired, shallow deposits that are all road accessible. So we don't have to fly helicopters up into the Golden Triangle and spend huge amounts of money drilling in the Arctic and putting in ice roads. We can just hire a contract. They can drop a drill on the project and drill shallow holes to add value. So I think it does not cost us a lot of capital to advance these assets.
So, but that's FG. We're kind of bouncing around the assets at the moment. I don't want to confuse people. So FG, I get that. You will spend whatever you think you need to, but it's not primary focus. It's easy access, it's cheap, it's shallow, and all the rest of it. And you're in no hurry now to find a JV partner or sell it, because you've got access to capital and you've got Eric Sprott on the board, which has not the board, but as an investor, which just makes access to money even easier and makes it cheaper. Let's focus on the question I asked, which is around California permitting, etc. How do you, with more money, ensure that you can get this thing over the line? It's at PEA stage. How do you get it through, obviously, feasibility? How do you resolve the issue of permitting? Are you having conversations? What are those conversations?
The funding doesn't change the approach. Like I said, we want to follow the do it right path on the ground in the project, regardless of, so that's where that's the immutable use of capital that the exploration can't take away from. So, on the ground in Imperial, Mark Leduc, our chief operating officer, is in the process of opening a local office. We've put together a team that we think is a great on the ground team that's engaging with the local political establishment, the local chamber of commerce, talking to the local community, getting the bureaucracy in the county geared up to support our permitting, because it's not an insignificant thing to propose developing a mining operation in a community, and it's a lot of work on the ground to seed it so that you get the best support you can, and all that work is ongoing. It's not the most exciting when you put out a news release about we're on the ground talking to people, but we're getting a really good groundswell of support from the political establishment. I think, unfortunately, COVID has created, higher unemployment and a greater desire for economic development. I think that's probably true across the United States. And politicians are being, you can bring jobs and skills to this county, and you're responsible in how you operate your mine. We're going to be very supportive and just digging into that and moving as quickly as we can within the bounds of the process of permitting. We got great traction.
So I understand that. In fact, the irony is also not lost on me that the COVID is possibly enhancing the ability of mining to actually do business. But California traditionally been fairly anti-mining. Permitting has been an issue. How do you get over it? How do you make people feel comfortable that this thing can get resolved? Because you're not the first company I've spoken to this week who've got issues with permits in California. What are you doing about it? More than just talking to the community, how do you give assurance to the market that it's going to be okay?
Yeah, I think to give assurance, quite frankly, we have to make positive steps forward. So we're engaging with stakeholders, and we want to show over time that they're supportive, that the BLM is taking steps to move our project through the permitting process, and all you can do is move forward in the process. As far as I guess you're talking a little bit about the sort of marketing inside, and what do you say to people? We are building, our strategy is what we call a coalition of support. So over time, we want to get support letters from mayors, chambers of commerce that says, we support your project and we're super excited.
Okay. Do you care whether Trump wins or if the Democrats get in? Does it affect your ability to get this project permitted?
Yeah, it's not about Trump. A Republican administration would mean continuity of direction within the Department of Interior, which runs the BLM, which is our primary permitter. A change of political leadership to the Democrats would mean over time there would be changes to that bureaucracy. However, even under the Republicans, the process hasn't changed. And getting back to California specifically, or quite frankly, Idaho or even Nevada these days, there will always be those that oppose mining development. There is an NGO community in the United States that just takes a view. If we can, get traction on a project and raise money and make it an issue, we will. So we have to do all we can to make it a non-issue. And the best thing you can do to do that is to get support of the local community. It's no different, quite frankly, than anywhere else in the world. I built a mine in North Africa, and it was because of that local support that you could say, okay, you can push off all the others. And if it's not a political issue in California, you'll get through the permitting processing in the United States because, by right, we have law says we can permit a mine here.
Okay. I guess we'll waiting brief on that side of things. With regards to how do you move this forward, again, we've heard a few different business models. Like in a gold bull environment, people want to take advantage of that because it may not be around forever. They want to move things quickly. So has your approach, your forward-looking approach to how you bring Imperial forward or take Imperial forward in the context of you don't want to be a mid-tier miner, you tell me, has that changed? Are you accelerating things, or is it just as we were?
Mine development is not something you can do and you can accelerate in 6 or 12 months. So, at Imperial, the thing about development is it's steady at the helm. So we are steady at the helm. We're telling people on the ground what we're doing at the project, and we're moving it forward as quickly as we can in the context of moving forward a large industrial development in a community. So I think what we have changed, and we do have the ability to pull some levers, is on the exploration side. So we staked a large, I think really the historic gold district in this county, which has a 150-year history. And we are going to go out and more aggressively explore on that. If we make some new discoveries, I think what it does bring forward is the potential monetization of the asset to a large mining company that may want to use this project for growth. So I think that's where we can pull levers to create value for core shareholders. But creating value at the asset level is all about steady at the helm and doing it right. And you can't accelerate that. There is a process, and we're going through it in the most expedient way we can.
Okay, so Eric Sprott's just put a chunk of change in. You've got into money in a couple of times now. How is he at all nervous around this permitting issue? Is he saying, actually, just be careful about how you spend your money? Should you be conserving your energy and money until this permit, there's more sight on that?
No, actually quite the opposite. His mentality is, it's a cyclical business, and we seem to be going into what I think what he believes will be a multi-year gold cycle. And in so doing, he wants to see companies get out and make a name for themselves and try and get value for their assets in that marketing. You can only do that by doing real work and adding value to your assets. We're doing that through the drill bit, as we've talked about on the exploration side, while with our excess capital, while making sure that we're steady at the helm on the ground at Imperial.
So has he bought into your company's philosophy of bringing projects through to a point where someone steps in and takes you out? You've said to me previously, in 3 years' time, we'll have sold Imperial. Is he buying into that model, or is he buying into the ability to access projects which you may then sell on?
No, I think he's bought into the prior to sort of read his view. I mean, he sees a whole bunch of companies are going to come out. There's going to be a stable of growth projects. The mid-tier miners and the larger miners are going to get higher and higher values. Investors will eventually push them beyond dividends for growth, and they'll have to go start kicking off an array of M&A where mid-tiers buy juniors. And I think he sees himself monetizing a whole bunch of his share positions, through that process. And he's placed lots of bets. Now he did take a 25, now it's 26% of core. So he obviously believes in the business plan that we've described to him. That is exactly what we've described to you. And I think he wants to see value creation, through the cycle, and that will, as a 25% shareholder, he's not selling stock or he didn't come in for 3 months to get the bump he's gotten to date. He's taken a big stake, and the only way you can monetize or get value through the cycle is to either become a miner and generate cash flow and move on into the future, or to position your assets in a place where they can solidify value for shareholders through M&A, moving into other companies, selling assets, and all of the things that can happen as you go into a commodity cycle.
Okay, so given he's invested in you and your thesis, and he's put quite a chunk of change in here, have you had time enough to demonstrate to him that you're capable of developing projects? Because with him or through him, you can get access to more capital, you can get access to more companies to put inside this portfolio, or do you think you've just got enough on your hands at the moment and you need time to actually prove that what you say is what you can do?
Yeah, and Eric's a busy guy. He's invested in so many companies. You can't get a lot of his time, right? He listens to your story, he's got a lot of capital to deploy, and he's taken a big position, so he believes in what he's heard. I think for me, the more validation about our plan on the ground at Imperial has got to be the Macquarie investment, because Macquarie did due diligence within their investment agreement. They've got social standards we have to meet. We've got various international standards we have to make our Imperial project bankable. And again, this is back to the strategy of doing it right on the ground, because you want the project that if at some point down the road you hand this project off to somebody else, that it's fully teed up to go into production, because that's how you're going to get the best value for it.
Okay, let's talk about value. Okay, if I look at you versus some of your peers, you are not valued very well. Okay, all CEOs tell me that they're undervalued, all of them. Even the ones who are your peers will tell me that. Okay, so
that's sort of our job. Yeah.
It is your job. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. But in the same breath, does that mean that you're missing a trick somewhere because the market's just not buying into what you've got? It can't just be down on Californian permitting. You've got a lot of other things, moving parts in the portfolio, and I know you don't necessarily see them as core, and Imperial is the thing that you've chosen to focus on. But what is the market not getting?
That's a great question. We ask ourselves that on a regular basis. We track, the value of our ounces in the ground compared to peers. We track, obviously, our price to NAV of peers. And while our share price has had a good run, as you've said, from April to now, and if you look at the chart, you might say, wow, you've kind of, some people are like, oh, you kind of missed the core. Yeah, we go back to exactly your statement that fundamental valuation appears still low, and we need to work hard to change that. And we need to do that by generating news releases like we did this morning on FG, working our assets, talking to as many people as we can in the market. Thank you very much for people like yourself for interviewing us and giving us that exposure so more people know about core. So, sorry, the direct answer to your question after my pontification is it is about market awareness of the company, and it's still only 19 months old now as a public equity, whereas most of our peers have 3 to 10 year track records where people say, okay, I know what that is. Those guys did it in the last cycle. I can see where this is going again, where they're sort of looking at core and going, where did this stuff come from? I need to think about this about a little bit. I want to see a little more action. I want to see some results. I want to see some news flow. So, we've got to, there is a very significant marketing component to trying to increase that valuation. And again, it's also back to the portfolio thing. At some point, do we need to make a BC company and a US company? Do we need to make those things to unlock that value? Because getting valuation, if you look at our other peers that have portfolios, it's hard to get peer level valuation for each asset within a portfolio in one company. So again, that's back to our strategy.
Well, this is where I'm going. And I was sort of hoping we're going to have a conversation today about, because people do find it hard to value different assets within a portfolio company. It sounds great, but you've got to have monetization moments on a regular basis for the market to actually be able to see what that means in dollar terms, in share price terms. Okay, you've in 3 months changed the shape of the company in terms of its market cap, its share price, which is great, and you're going to try and resolve how you can better compare against your peers. But at the end of the day, people just don't get what you're trying to do yet. Are you not tempted to go and find yourself a good asset to work on? You guys are good management. You have good strategies. You do things well. You do it when you say you're going to do it. You've managed it on tight budgets. There's a lot to like about this, but you're doing it with assets which are just hard work. With access to Eric Sprott and his capital, and if he believes in you, are you not tempted to go out and maybe make an acquisition?
No, acquire right now. No, I think we need to just, mining is like all businesses you got to work hard. So we're going to work hard for our shareholders, and we hope to continue to generate returns through that hard work. We've got a little bit of capital in our pockets now to do it. So it's just keep doing the hard work. We got to, grind it out, and you got to continually make your projects better. So, when I say no, when you say acquisitions, it depends on the scale you're talking about. We are going to look for opportunities to make sure we have the land and the claims around our projects to support real mine developments. So we will continue to look at things around the edges to make our assets better for sure. Can we stake some claims? Can we pick up some blocks that enhance the exploration? Do we see a good opportunity over there that enhances the current assets? But I don't see us stepping into a whole new area or jurisdiction with a new project right now. That's just not in the cards. We need to bear down and do good work on our projects to show that they are worthy of value, because the market, you're right, does not see that right now.
So when do you start making decisions? When do you start talking to the market about that? Because if I'm looking at FG, all of a sudden, that's a totally different story from 3 months ago, because that was a low grade, 0.8 of a gram type story, not that interesting. You said you're going to drill a few holes, but you were going to do it on a success-based spend. Looks like that spend has delivered some interesting results. Does that turn your head at all?
Certainly, it gives us, with the access to capital, it's given us confidence to put another 5,000 meters into that asset to, put more technical meat on the bones to show people that that deposit can be better than 0.8. Our objective is to upgrade that resource to something where we can have an economic open pit, and give a hint that there's some good underground opportunity, which we're seeing sniffs of in the deeper drill holes. And that's all about creating this realization that, this is a real asset. And, the market's pretty smart. There's a lot of smart investors out there, and they think in some ways very similar to the other companies. So as we convince investors that FG is a good project, we will probably also convince companies that FG is a good project. And that'll then, again, bring up those strategic choices where maybe we're better to push that project into some other situation to generate the value for our shareholders. And certainly we are constantly feeling out the market for those opportunities and making sure that we keep an eye out for generating value.
So when's the next fundraise?
No time soon. We're funded to do 5,000 meters we did some flow through with part of our ERIC financing. We've, got brackets as soon as we get the permits to do $1 million to $2 million between Long Valley and Imperial Regional, and Mark is fully funded for the Do It Right plan for the next 6 to 12 months. So, if you hit a big whopper hole in one of these things and you've got an opportunity, maybe you look to increase the scale of your programs. We will have enough drill pads permitted to spend a lot more money, but we just don't see it prudent to do so at the time right now.
Have you spoken to Equinox recently?
I have a regular dialogue. I know the team over there quite well. Certainly, we'll see. We're keen to see how their strategy evolves.
I think their strategy is doing quite well. It's a question of how it evolves for you. Scott, appreciate you coming on and talking to us. I love the last conversation. I've liked what I've heard today as well. So, best of luck. Pick up the phone when there's new news. We'd be delighted to take that call.
Great. Wonderful conversation. Thank you very much for taking some time to think a bit about Core.